Daniel never really belonged. At least, that's how it felt. Growing up in a quiet coastal barangay, surrounded by houses that barely stood against the salt wind, he learned early on that silence could protect you. That if people didn't know your story, they wouldn't have a reason to hurt you. His father disappeared when he was 5. His mother, gentle but hollowed out by life, spoke little, and even when she did, it was always in whispers. They lived in a worn-down Bahay kubo at the edge of town, right next to the mangrove forest. People said strange things lived in those trees, but for Daniel, it was just another place to be alone. No one really visited them, not even for fiestas. And Daniel, well, Daniel stopped expecting anyone to, but he wasn't completely alone. He had Dado, his best friend since grade school. Dado was the only one who treated him like he mattered. Funny, loud, always talking nonsense about girls or haunted TikTok stories, but also the first one to punch someone in the mouth when they called Daniel weird or possessed. Dado made things bearable, even fun sometimes, until things started changing. It began with the dreams. Daniel would wake up, gasping, every night for a week. The dreams were always the same. He stood in front of his house, staring at someone who looked exactly like him. Same face, same hair, same clothes. But this other Daniel didn't blink, didn't breathe. He'd just smile, wide and stretched too far, like his skin didn't quite fit. And then he'd whisper something Daniel could never remember. No matter how hard he tried, he kept it to himself at first. Just dreams, right? Probably from stress. School was ending, and like most poor kids, Daniel knew his future was a question mark. No money for college, no father to guide him, just the mangroves and silence. But then the dreams began to leak into the day. The first time it happened, Daniel was walking home from the sari-sari store when an old man sitting near the chapel greeted him. "Yo, why are you back so early? I just saw you go toward the cemetery." Daniel froze. He hadn't been anywhere near the cemetery. Then came the voice messages. Dado sent one in the middle of the night. "Bro, not funny. If you didn't want to hang out, you could have just said, why act all weird in front of the basketball court?" Daniel had been asleep, alone at home. Still, he tried to push it away. Maybe stress was doing this. Maybe he was losing sleep. But deep inside, something colder began to spread, an instinct older than logic. He wasn't just being imagined. There was something else. Someone. His mother noticed the changes. "You're not eating," she said one morning, eyes sunken like she hadn't slept either. "You talk to yourself at night." But Daniel didn't remember saying anything. He'd try to laugh it off with Dado one day. They skipped school, walked to the edge of the beach with cheap soda in hand, and Daniel joked, "Maybe I've got a twin." Like a secret clone the government lost. Dado laughed hard. A clone who likes creeping out old people. For a while, the lightness returned. The sky felt less heavy. But it didn't last. The next day, someone sprayed red paint across the walls of their home. It was a word in an old language Daniel couldn't read, but it looked like it was written in rage. The neighbors said it appeared at dawn. No one saw who did it. That night, Daniel heard knocking from inside the house, from inside the walls. By the time the week ended, the dreams weren't just dreams anymore. He'd see glimpses of his double reflected in dark windows. At school, a teacher called his name, but someone else answered, with his voice behind him. He spun around. No one was there. One night, desperate and shaking, Daniel crept in a mangrove forest. He didn't know why, just that something was calling him there. The air turned thick, the trees whispering like they breathed. And deep in that maze of branches, he found something wrong. A clearing, circular, unnaturally perfect. At its center, an old mirror, broken and half buried in mud, reflecting nothing. Nothing at all. Daniel reached for it, unsure, and the ground beneath him shifted. Cold hands, his own hands, shot up from the earth and grabbed his wrist. He screamed, pulling back, and fell hard. When he looked again, the clearing was empty. The mirror was gone. He ran all the way home. But when he entered their bamboo door, his mother was waiting, with a face pale as paper and eyes full of fear. "Who let you in?" she asked, trembling. "You just left 5 minutes ago. I watched you walk out." Daniel's blood ran cold. "No, I've been gone for hours." She shook her head. "Daniel, you said something to me. Something that wasn't you." It was then Daniel noticed the calendar on the wall. The date was wrong. It was a full day behind. He didn't sleep that night. He couldn't, because sometime around midnight, his phone vibrated. A message from his own number. A photo. It showed him sleeping in bed. But Daniel was awake, standing and holding the phone. His reflection in the dark window stared back at him and smiled. The storm hadn't stopped. Rain tapped against the roof like hurried footsteps. Inside the dim, creaking house, Miguel sat by the window, eyes heavy from lack of sleep. That night, the night he saw the creature with glowing eyes at the river, kept replaying in his mind like a broken record. Lola Ising had said nothing since. She just lit more incense, whispered prayers to saints, and rubbed crushed leaves on Miguel's wrists. His parents, both cold and stiff as stone, refused to believe a word. "Too much imagination," his father said, eyes narrowed. His mother, on the other hand, simply turned away. But Miguel knew what he saw, and now strange things were happening. Their carabao refused to go near the fields. The chickens had stopped laying eggs. At night, a voice whispered his name from the trees outside, soft as wind, but full of warning. And then there was the mirror. Last night, he caught a glimpse of his reflection shifting, like something inside him wanted to claw its way out. It was Lola Ising who broke the silence. "You need to know the truth," she said, her voice rough like old wood. "Our family, we carry blood that's not just human." Miguel's throat tightened. He turned to her, confusion in his eyes. "What do you mean, not human?" Lola Ising sighed, brushing her fingers over a necklace hidden beneath her blouse. She pulled it out, a mutia, a round green stone in a rusted silver casing. It glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. "This belonged to your great-grandfather," she whispered. "He was an albulario, not just a healer, but a protector of the village. But one night, he failed to stop the Iswangs that came. They cursed our bloodline. Since then, each child born from our blood carries a shadow, a burden." Miguel couldn't believe it. "You're saying, I'm cursed?" "No, you're something more. You're the key to ending it." Outside, thunder cracked like a whip. The lights flickered. Miguel swallowed hard. "Why now?" "Because something old has awakened," Lola said. "The Iswangs are not just hiding in the dark anymore. They're gathering." Later that night, Miguel couldn't sleep. The walls of the house felt tighter, the air heavier. So he went out, past the rusted gate, through the muddy path, and toward the old bolete tree near the creek. That's where it happened the first time, where he saw the creature. He needed answers. He needed truth. As he approached, the leaves began to stir. But there was no wind. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Not human, but not entirely beast either. Its skin shimmered like wet stone, and its eyes held oceans deep, ancient, unforgiving. A shokowi, a water spirit feared by fishermen. Miguel froze. "Do not run," the creature said in a voice like gurgling water. "I've watched over your blood for generations." "Who are you?" Miguel asked, heart pounding. "Calme callo. I was bound to your family when your great-grandfather saved my kin from slaughter. In return, I protected your bloodline. Until now." Miguel stepped back. "You mean the curse? You knew?" "Yes, and it is growing stronger," Calio said. "Something, or someone, is feeding it. An ancient Iswang has returned, one we thought long dead." The Shokowi raised his webbed hand, and from it floated a pearl-shaped shell, glowing blue. This is the Kabibi ng Liwanag. Your great-grandfather used it in battle. It can wound dark creatures, if your soul is strong enough. Miguel hesitative. What if I'm not? Calio looked at him with deep sadness. Then the village will fall, and so will your family. The next day, Miguel woke up with the Kabibi clenched in his hand. He didn't remember falling asleep or walking home, but the shell was warm and it hummed when he touched it. In school, his friends avoided him. News of a child going missing had spread. Whispers followed him like shadows. He was the last to see him. Maybe he knows something. Stay away from Miguel. Even the teachers seemed uneasy around him. At lunch, he sat alone under the acacia tree. The shell buzzed in his pocket. He clenched his fist, staring at the rice and dried fish in front of him, untouched. Then someone sat across him. It was Leah, the quiet girl who always carried salt in her pockets and wore garlic on a string. You saw it too, didn't you? She said, eyes steady. Miguel blinked. What? Last week. Near the river. I saw it. The creature. She leaned in. My grandmother's a mangagamot. She told me they're waking up. For a moment, Miguel felt relief. He wasn't alone. Leah pulled out a small pouch. This is Banahaw salt. Use it around your window tonight. He took it silently, nodding. There was something about her, like she knew more than she was letting on. That night, Miguel finally opened the chest in the attic. The one his father said never to touch. Inside were old photographs, yellowed scrolls, dried herbs, and a tattered book with his great-grandfather's name on the cover. Mateo de la Cruz. He flipped through the pages. Drawings of creatures, rituals, symbols. On one page, the handwriting trembled as it warned. The one born under the red eclipse carries both light and shadow. Beware the choice he makes. It will shape the fate of the living and the dead. Miguel's heart stopped. He was born during a red eclipse. His mother told him once, laughing, that the moon turned the color of blood the night he came into the world. Suddenly, the wind slammed against the windows. The air grew cold, and then he heard it again. A voice, outside his room, calling his name, whispering, begging, scratching. He grabbed the Kabibi, heart racing, and waited. In the days that followed, Miguel trained in secret. Calio appeared only during rainstorms, teaching him how to listen to the water, how to hear truth through silence. The Mutia from Lola glowed when danger was near. Leah taught him chants, old words that burned the tongue but pushed darkness back. But something was wrong. His father had grown colder, distant, almost hollow. His eyes were different, too dark, too still. One morning, Miguel found feathers and dried blood beneath the house. His dog was missing, and when he looked into his father's room, he saw scratch marks along the floor. Lola warned him, not all monsters come from the forest. Some wear familiar faces. Miguel refused to believe it, but deep inside, he feared it might be true. There was something twisted happening, a hidden swaying in the house, a curse deepening with every nightfall, or something worse, something born from within. The answers would come soon, but Miguel wasn't sure he was ready. Not yet. And still, the shadows kept whispering. The nights were getting longer. Miguel hadn't slept properly in days. Every creak of the floorboard, every rustle of leaves outside, made his heart race. The air smelled different now, like burnt earth and cold ash. Even the trees seemed to lean closer, as if they were watching. Lola Ising had grown weaker. She barely spoke anymore. Sometimes she stared into the distance, whispering names Miguel didn't recognize. At night, she clutched the mutia and muttered prayers that sounded older than language. Miguel didn't know what was happening to her, but he felt it. Something dark was pressing in, and then one night he saw it. Through the small crack in his bedroom wall, he saw his father walk barefoot into the backyard. The moon was hidden behind clouds, but Miguel could still make out the shape of something off. His father's arms were longer. His skin looked too tight, almost like it didn't fit right. He followed silently. His father knelt near the banana trees, digging at the earth with his bare hands. And then he pulled something out, a jar wrapped in black cloth, covered in dried blood. Miguel's breath caught. It was Gwegwe, a container used by dark creatures to store souls or fetuses, tools for his swangs. Miguel stumbled backward. A twig snapped under his foot. His father looked up. For a second, their eyes met. And what Miguel saw wasn't his father. It was something else, something hollow, hungry. He ran. By morning, he tried to pretend it didn't happen. But something inside him broke. His father, the man who taught him how to ride a bike, who carried him on his shoulders during fiestas, wasn't human anymore. Or maybe he never was? Miguel sat on the porch, staring at the cracked cement, feeling the weight in his chest grow heavier. Why didn't anyone tell him? Why was he the one who had to carry this? Later that day, Callio appeared at the riverbank. You've seen it now, the Shokoi said. The truth. You cannot run from it. Miguel's voice cracked. What am I supposed to do? Kill him? He's still my father. No, Callio said softly. He's a shell now. The spirit that made him your father is buried deep or gone. If you hesitate, he'll destroy you. Miguel looked down at the kabibi in his hand. Its light had dimmed. Maybe it sensed his doubt. I didn't ask for this, he whispered. I just wanted to be normal. Play basketball. Go to school. Laugh with friends. Not this. Callio didn't answer right away. He just watched the river flow, like it carried the secrets of the world. No one asked to carry a curse, he said finally. But you can choose what to do with it. That night, Miguel heard something outside his window. Not a whisper, not a scratch, a laugh. Soft, girlish, wrong. He peeked through the bamboo slats. A little girl stood by the fence, her dress torn, her hair covering her face. He opened the window slightly. Hey, are you lost? The girl slowly looked up. Her eyes were white. No pupils. Just fog. Miguel, she said in a voice too old for her body. Come out and play. He stepped back, heart pounding. The girl's jaw twisted too wide, and she started climbing the fence without using her hands. Like she floated, like she was being pulled. Miguel grabbed the pouch of Banahaw salt and threw it across the window. The girl screeched, smoke rising from her skin, and vanished into the trees. He felt at his knees, shaking. That wasn't just a threat. That was a message. They knew who he was now, and they were coming. The next day, he found Liao waiting for him outside school. You're not safe anymore, she said. We have to go my Lola. She can hide us. For now. Miguel hesitative. He didn't want to run, but he also didn't know if he could face his father again. They walked through the narrow back roads, away from the main path. Coconut trees lined the horizon. The wind carried the scent of burnt feathers. On the way, Liao shared something he didn't expect. My mother left me when I was 5, she said. Said I was cursed. Said I brought death. Miguel looked at her. You too? She nodded. Some of us are marked from birth. We carry it in our blood. But that doesn't mean we're the evil ones. They arrived at a small hut deep in the trees. Inside, her Lola Burring, an old Mangagamot, sat cross-legged, eyes closed. You brought him, she said before even opening her eyes. The Moonchild. Miguel stepped forward. Do you know how to stop this? He asked. She opened her eyes slowly. You don't stop darkness. You survive it. You push it back. But the roots, boy, the roots go deep. She handed him a wrapped cloth. Inside was an old dagger carved from black bone, etched with symbols. This belonged to your real grandfather. Not Mateo, the one before. The one no one talks about. The first to make a deal with an Encanto. The one who started this. Miguel was stunned. I have another grandfather? She nodded. They erased him from records. Because his soul turned. He traded something precious to gain power. And now, his sin echoes through your blood. Miguel stared at the dagger, hands trembling. All this time, His family had been hiding more than monsters. They were part of it. Later, while resting outside, Miguel sat beside Leah. "Do you think I'll become like them?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. "You'll become what you choose," she said. "But the pull, it's strong." Miguel nodded, staring at the stars. The wind rustled the trees. Far off, an idic screamed, a death omen, Lola used to say. Suddenly, the air shifted. Leah stood up. "Something's wrong." Out of the trees came a tall woman in white. Her feet floated above the ground. Her face was covered with a veil, but her mouth stretched into a smile that dripped with blood. Lola, burring, shouted from inside, "Don't look her in the eyes." But it was too late. Miguel stared just for a second, and he saw visions. Flames. Screams. His village in ruins. His hands covered in blood. His own voice chanting words he didn't understand. He collapsed. When he woke up, it was dawn. The woman was gone. Lola, burring, was on the floor, her breath shallow. "She's one of the Alangonga," she said weakly. "Echo spirits. They feed on fear, on destiny." Leah looked at Miguel. "You saw something, didn't you?" Miguel couldn't speak. The images burned behind his eyes. What if he was the one who destroyed everything? What if that's what the curse meant? Not that he would stop the darkness, but that he would become it? The final straw came that evening. Miguel returned home to check on Lola Ising. But she was gone. The house was torn apart. Scratch marks on the walls. Dried blood on the floor. A single note scrawled on the wall in what looked like charcoal. The blood must return to its master. He fell to his knees, the kabibi in his hand glowing again, bright this time. But not from hope, from grief. They had taken her, and now the war was no longer in the shadows. It had come for him, and he had no choice but to fight, even if it meant facing his own blood, even if it meant losing himself. The village was changing. The trees didn't rustle the same way anymore. The birds, those that hadn't flown away, sang in broken, panicked rhythms. Even the dogs refused to bark at night. It was like everything around them knew what was coming. Miguel stood on the roof of his house, the kabibi pulsing faintly in his palm. He looked out over the fields, now dry and cracked like bones. Smoke drifted lazily from somewhere far off. Another family, maybe another victim. Beside him, Leah sat quietly, stringing dried tanglad into a protective bracelet. "They're getting ready," she said, not looking at him. "We can feel it too." Miguel didn't answer. He could already feel it in his body, the weight in his chest, the tightness in his lungs. Every night the dreams were worse. Visions of fire, blood, his own hands holding the cursed dagger. Visions of him becoming the thing he feared. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The final battle was near, and he still wasn't sure if he'd survive it. Not just alive, but as himself. Lola Ising's disappearance had left a hole in him. He couldn't eat for days, could barely speak. Her scent still lingered in the air, smoke and guava leaves. He'd walk past her room, hoping to find her again, sitting on the floor, humming prayers. But the house was silent now, and emptier than ever. Callio had returned that week. The Shokoi skin was cracked, his voice slower. Even he looked weaker, as if whatever was coming was draining the very spirits who protected the land. "You must hurry," Callio warned. "The Aswangs, they're not hiding anymore. They've gathered near Mount Banuel. Old grounds, cursed grounds, Miguel Fronith. What are they waiting for?" "A night with no moon," Callio said. "It comes in 3 days. Then the barrier between this world and theirs will tear open. And if we don't stop them," Leah asked. Callio looked at them quiet. "Then they won't need to hide anymore. They'll rule." They trained every day after that, under the old mango tree, in the river, beside burning circles of salt and ashes. Leah practiced her chants, memorizing old words passed down by her Lola. Miguel swung the black bone dagger until his arms burned. He wore the mutia on a chain around his neck, the kabibi tied to his wrist. Both seemed heavier now, alive somehow, guiding him, maybe warning him. But doubts followed him like a second shadow. "What if I'm not strong enough?" he asked Liao one night, as they sat beside a fire. She poked at the flames with a stick, eyes low. "Then I'll fight until you are." "But what if I become like them?" he whispered. "Like my father?" Liao looked at him then. Really looked. "You won't," she said, "because you're afraid of it. That means there's still light in you." He didn't answer, because deep down, he wasn't sure anymore. On the second night, the signs grew worse. Dead animals lined the rice fields, their eyes hollowed out. The old church bell rang on its own, echoing at midnight. A baby was born with black eyes and died before its first breath. People were starting to leave, carrying bags, crucifixes, garlic. They didn't look at Miguel, or when they did, it was with fear, as if they saw the darkness in him too. The village was unraveling, and the source was getting closer. That afternoon, Calio led them to the base of Mount Banuel. Hidden behind thorn trees and forgotten footpaths was an ancient cave. The stone around it was blackened, scarred from old fires, old wars. "This is where your ancestor made his deal," Calio said. "This is where it began." Miguel stepped forward. The air was colder here, heavy with old spirits. He touched the stone. Images flashed in his mind, of a man kneeling, blood spilling from his palm, offering something to a figure in the shadows. "My blood for your power," the voice echoed in his head. He pulled back, gasping. Liao caught him. "What did you see?" "Everything." Inside the cave, they found markings, blood-red drawings that told stories of creatures feeding, of children taken, of families torn apart. And at the center, an altar, cracked and rotting, but still alive with energy. Miguel stepped closer, feeling the pulse beneath his feet. Something was buried here, something waiting. "This is where they'll open the gate," Calio said, "on the night of no moon." Miguel pressed his hand to the stone. It was warm. Liao looked around. "Then we have to stop them here. Burn it. Seal it." But Calio shook his head. "Not yet. If you burn it now, they'll just find another way. You must face them, on their night, while the portal opens. Only then can you end it forever." Miguel felt sick. "So we wait." "Yes," Calio said, "but not for long." The final day came like a whisper. The sun never fully rose. A gray sky hung over the land like a dying blanket. Wind carried the smell of metal and rotting leaves. Miguel stood outside his house, staring at the horizon. His bag was packed. Dagger, salt, herbs, the mutia, the kabibi, a picture of Lola Ising tucked into the pocket of his shirt. Liao joined him quietly, wearing a red sash around her waist, blessed by her Lola. "You ready?" she asked. "No," she smiled sadly. "Me neither." They walked through the empty streets, past boarded homes, broken tricycles, and wilted flowers. At the edge of the village, a man stood waiting. It was his father, or what used to be. His eyes were wrong, his voice deeper. Something twisted stretched under his skin. "Son," he said, "come with me. We can stop this. You don't have to fight." Miguel tightened his grip on the dagger. "You're not my father." The thing laughed. "No," it said, "but he's still in here, begging me not to kill you." Miguel's hands trembled. Liao stepped forward, throwing salt at the creature. It screamed, face melting into something monstrous. Then it vanished into smoke. Miguel collapsed to his knees, breath shaky. "It's starting," he said. They reached the cave before nightfall. Calio was already there, along with Leah's Lola and two other Bante spirits, one made of wind, the other of ash. They stood in a circle, chanting quietly, holding back the darkness as long as they could. Above them, the sky darkened. No moon, no stars, just a void. From inside the cave, they heard them. Whispers. Growls. Footsteps. The enemy was waking up, and they were hungry. Miguel stared into the cave, into the mouth of darkness. He turned to Leah, voice shaking. "This is it." She nodded, touching his shoulder. "We end it here." And then the shadows began to pour out. The shadows moved like smoke. One by one, they slithered out of the cave, long, twisted shapes with eyes that glowed like burning coals. Their forms were half human, half beast, mouths filled with sharp teeth, dripping with hunger. The Aswangs had come, and they weren't hiding anymore. Miguel gripped the black-bone dagger tighter. His hands were cold, but sweat dripped from his temples. Leah stood beside him, whispering an old chant under her breath, her fingers brushing the herbs tied to her belt. Calio signaled from the left side of the cave, the river spirits gathering behind him. "Stay close. Don't let them pull you into the shadows." Then came the sound that made Miguel's chest freeze. Laughter. Not wild, not crazed, mocking. From the mouth of the cave stepped a figure in a red robe, skin pale as salt, eyes sharp as glass. His steps were slow, like he had all the time in the world. Miguel felt his stomach twist. "Who is that?" Leah whispered. Calio didn't answer. The figure stopped a few feet away and smiled, revealing a mouth filled with tiny, sharp teeth. "You've been busy oppoing Sanumpa," the man said. "Training, praying, pretending you can stop what's already begun." Miguel's voice was low. "Who are you?" The man bowed slightly, mocking. "I am Lachim, the one your ancestor bargained with, the true heir to the curse you now carry." Miguel stepped forward. "You gave him power in exchange for blood." Lachim laughed. "He gave it willingly. And now, so will you." Leah stepped between them. "Never." But Lachim didn't look at her. His eyes stayed on Miguel. "You think this is about the village? The cave? The monsters in the dark?" Lachim's voice deepened. "This is about blood. Your blood. You were never chosen to stop the curse. You were born to complete it." Miguel's heart slammed against his ribs. What are you saying?" Calio stepped forward, anger in his eyes. "Don't listen. He's twisting the old truth." But Miguel wasn't so sure anymore. The visions, the strength, the connection to the cave. What if Lachim was telling the truth? What if Miguel wasn't the hero? What if he was the final key? The battle began without warning. The first wave of Aswangs lunged forward, screeching, claws outstretched. Calio and the river spirits charged to meet them, water slicing through flesh and bone. Leah shouted her chants, sending fire through the grass, burning the feet of the approaching creatures. Miguel moved on instinct, slashing, blocking, dodging. The dagger in his hand glowed with a dark light, and every time it struck, the enemy screamed louder. But in the middle of the chaos, Lachim just stood, smiling, watching, like a master admiring his storm. And then Miguel heard a voice. Soft, familiar. "Miguel, Anik," he turned. Standing near the tree line was his mother, or what looked like her. She wore the same dress from his childhood. Her hair was tied the same way. Her smile was warm, but her eyes, they were empty. "Mama," he whispered, stepping back. Leah grabbed his arm. "Don't. That's not her." But Miguel couldn't stop himself. The voice, the smell, even the way she tilted her head, it was all the same. "You don't have to fight anymore," the woman said gently. "Come home. Sleep. It's over." Miguel's throat tightened. I missed you." He took a step closer, and that's when her smile snapped open, mouth stretching wider than human, revealing rows of jagged black teeth. Miguel stumbled back. Leah threw salt at the creature. It shrieked and dissolved into smoke, leaving only the echo of laughter behind. "You almost let her in," Leah said. "They're playing with your heart now." Miguel nodded slowly, shaking. He wasn't just fighting monsters anymore. He was fighting memories. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. It was impossible to tell. The sky was still black, the stars hidden behind thick clouds. Bodies littered the ground, both enemies and friends. One of the river spirits had fallen, turned into a puddle of blood and stone. Liao was bleeding from her arm, her voice hoarse from chanting. And Miguel was tired, so tired. He looked down at the dagger. It was humming now, louder than before. It wanted something. It knew something. Lachim stepped forward again, untouched by the battle. "Let me show you," he said. "Let me show you who you really are." Miguel fell to one knee, clutching his head. Visions poured in. A long hall, a throne made of bone, a younger version of himself, standing beside Lachim, laughing as the earth burned. Leah's voice broke through. "Fight it!" But he couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The mutia around his neck pulsed, burning his skin. The kabibi cracked, as if reacting to something buried deeper. And then he saw it, in a vision, the truth. His grandfather hadn't just made a deal. He had offered Miguel's soul before he was even born. The curse wasn't just inherited. It was promised. "Your family gave you to me," Lachim whispered. "All this training, this fight, this hope, it's just delay. You are mine." Miguel screamed, and the dagger dropped from his hand. The earth shook. Calio shouted, "Don't let go. Don't give in." But Miguel couldn't hear him anymore. Everything was spinning. His body burned. The ground cracked beneath him. The altar in the cave began to glow red. And then, a voice inside him, not Lachim's, not Leah's, a child's voice. "We are more than our blood." Miguel gasped. The mutia flared, and everything stopped for 1 second. He opened his eyes and saw someone standing near the altar, a boy, maybe 8 or 9, wearing old, torn clothes. His face looked just like Miguel's, but pale, tired, forgotten. Miguel took a step closer. "Who are you?" The boy blinked. "I'm the part of you they buried, the part they feared, the part that still remembers love." Then the boy smiled. "You don't have to be what they made you," and vanished. Miguel stood alone now, between Lachim and the cave. His body shook, but his grip on the dagger returned. Stronger. He turned to Leah. "I saw it. I saw everything." Leah wiped blood from her cheek. "Then you know what's at stake." Miguel nodded. "But I also know this. I'm not the end." He looked at Lachim, eyes steady now. "I'm the last mistake you'll make." Lachim laughed, slow and cruel. "We'll see." And with a flick of his wrist, the cave split open, and something ancient began to rise. The ground cracked open beneath Miguel's feet. From the depths of the cave, a howl erupted, a sound ancient and full of hunger. The wind screamed through the trees as a blinding red light poured out of the altar. Roots twisted in reverse, sky trembling, birds fleeing. From the broken altar rose a creature like shadow, given flesh. Massive, faceless, horned. Its limbs flickered between smoke and bone. Lachim raised both hands, grinning like a man who had waited centuries for this moment. "The gate is open," he whispered. "The old god is waking." Miguel clutched the dagger. Its handle pulsed like a heartbeat in his palm. Around his neck, the mutia shone like fire trapped in glass. The kabibi, cracked from before, suddenly pieced itself back together, glowing faint blue, calm, steady, alive. Leah stumbled next to him, bleeding and breathless. "Miguel," she gasped, "if you go near the altar now, it might consume you." He didn't look away from the rising creature. "If I don't, it'll consume everything else." Calio shouted from the other side of the battlefield, dragging a wounded river spirit behind him. "You must strike before it crosses fully into this world." Miguel took a deep breath. Inside him, fear twisted, but deeper than fear, something else stirred. A strange calm, the kind that comes when there's nothing left to lose. He walked straight into the light. The world around him dissolved into wind and ash. His feet no longer touched solid ground. Instead, he was floating inside the space between worlds where the creature lived. It saw him. No eyes, no mouth, but it saw him. Miguel felt his soul being peeled layer by layer. All his memories laid bare. His childhood, his mother's lullabies, his father's final whisper, Lola Ising's stories, the betrayal of his bloodline, the weight of the curse. It showed him what he could become, a king of rot and flame. Feared, immortal. But then, it showed him something worse. A future where he walked away, where he survived. But Lia didn't, where the village burned, where the stars blinked out one by one, where children grew up never knowing hope. Miguel screamed, not in fear, but in rage. No! The Mucha blazed, the Kabibi pulsed, and the dagger caught fire with both. I'm not yours, Miguel said, voice echoing across worlds. I'm not my blood. I'm my choice. And with that, he charged. Outside, Lia watched in horror as the light grew brighter. Calio stood beside her, eyes wide. If he fails, there won't be a world to return to. He won't, Lia said, gripping her herbs. He's not alone. She knelt to the earth, pressing her palms into the soil. By the spirits of my ancestors, lend him strength. And for the first time in years, the ground responded. Inside the rift, Miguel fought the creature, not with muscle, but with memory. He stabbed with moments of love, blocked with sacrifice, slashed with regret and hope. The dagger glowed every time he remembered something human. His mother's song, the smell of rain on the roof, Lia's laughter after a failed spell. The creature howled, shrinking with every cut. Lockham appeared beside it, desperate, shouting curses in ancient tongues. You're part of me, Lockham screamed. You can't destroy what you are. I'm not destroying, Miguel said. I am choosing. And with one final strike, he drove the dagger into the creature's heart. There was no blood, only silence. Then the light collapsed inward, and everything turned white. The next thing Miguel knew, he was lying in the grass. The cave was gone, just gone. In its place was an empty crater, glowing faintly with morning dew. Birds were singing again. He blinked against the rising sun. His body ached, but he was breathing. Lia knelt beside him, crying and laughing at the same time. You did it, she said. You brought the sun back. Miguel looked up, dazed. Where's Lockham? Calio walked over, dragging what looked like a crumpled red robe. Fled into the dark again. Weak, but not dead. He'll come back. Miguel asked. Calio nadith. They always try, but now they know someone will fight. Miguel sat up slowly, touching the Mucha. It was dull now, quiet. The Kabibi had turned black, like a burned shell. They gave everything, he whispered. Lia held his hand. So did you. For days, the village mourned its dead and celebrated its survival. The church bells rang again, not in fear, but in prayer. The children sang. The elders wept. Miguel stood at Lola Ising's old garden, planting a new sapling where the wind never used to blow. The soil felt soft. The tree, already blooming. Lia placed a woven bracelet on the branch. For the ones we lost, she said. Miguel nadith. For the ones we'll protect. But peace never lasts forever. That night, as Miguel sat by the river alone, the wind shifted. A soft ripple on the water. A reflection behind him. He turned, and there stood the boy. The one from a vision. The one who looked like him. I thought you were gone, Miguel said. I am, the boy replied. But not fully. You ended the curse. But not the hunger it left behind. Miguel's heart tightened. What do you mean? The boy knelt, touching the water. Something else was watching. Something older. Deeper. It didn't enter this time. But it will. The boy nodded. And when it does, it won't send shadows. Miguel swallowed hard. Then I'll be ready. The boy smiled faintly. You better be, because next time, it won't be your blood they want. The wind carried the boy's voice as he faded into moonlight. "They'll want your soul." And Miguel was left alone, but not afraid. Not anymore, because he knew now, light didn't mean the absence of darkness. It meant choosing to stand even when the dark came close. And he would be ready, no matter what came next. The first light of morning washed over the village like a quiet promise. For the first time in years, the air didn't feel heavy. No strange whispers in the trees. No shadows lingering just beyond sight. There was only sunlight, bird song, and the gentle rustle of leaves as life slowly returned. Miguel stood at the edge of the fields, watching the farmers begin again. Their faces were tired, but their steps were steady. Beside him, Leah hummed an old lullaby, one her Lola used to sing to calm restless spirits. "Feels strange," she said softly, seeing everything normal again. Miguel nodded. After what we saw, what we faced, normal feels like a miracle. Calio had returned to the river, though he promised to watch over the borders between the seen and unseen. The other spirits faded with the curses unraveling. Some returned to their world, others left behind small blessings. A flower that never wilted, a well that never ran dry. Signs of quiet thanks. Miguel, though, remained. A boy no longer. The hero the village needed, but also the one it never truly understood. They held a small ceremony for those lost. Candles lined the stone path leading to the old tree. Names were whispered into the night. Tears fell like rain, but there was no bitterness now, only gratitude. Even the elders, once skeptical of Miguel, bowed their heads as he passed. They had seen the light rise from the cave. They had heard the sky crack open, and they knew, without him, there would be no more dawns. One by one, they came to him, a mother pressing his hand in thanks, a child giving him a drawing of the battle, stick figures and all, a young man whispering, "You gave me hope." Miguel accepted each gesture with quiet humility. But inside, he still carried the weight of the truth. He was not just a boy who saved the village. He was the promise of a curse, broken by choice. At home, he found his mother's old locket buried beneath the floorboards, a silver piece with a faded photo inside, her holding baby Miguel. He sat with it for a long time. "I wish you could see this," he whispered. "Wish I could tell you. I forgive you." She had made her choices, and those choices had cost them both. But she had loved him. He knew that now. Even in her silence, she had fought in her own way. Leah decided to stay in the village. "There's still healing to do," she said, mixing herbs at the back of her hut. "And maybe I'll teach the next generation of guardians." Miguel helped her gather roots from the forest. They laughed more now. She teased him about how serious he looked when thinking. He teased her about how terrible her cooking still was. "Maybe peace isn't so boring after all," she joked. Miguel grinned. "We'll see how long it lasts." But behind their smiles, they both knew something unspoken. The darkness wasn't gone forever. It never truly is. It only sleeps. And when it wakes, someone must be ready again. One night, weeks after the battle, Miguel stood by the river where it all began. The moon reflected clearly in the water. He could almost see the boy again, the one who looked like him, who reminded him of the forgotten love buried deep in his soul. But the river was still, quiet. He sat on a rock and closed his eyes. And then a voice, not spoken aloud, but carried through memory. "You changed the story." Miguel didn't open his eyes. "I didn't do it alone," he said softly. The voice answered, "No one ever does." When he finally looked up, the stars had returned, brighter than before. Before sunrise, Miguel climbed the highest hill behind the village, the same place he used to go as a child, dreaming of faraway worlds. Now he'd seen those worlds, fought in them, bled for them, but somehow it made the view more beautiful, not less. He sat with his knees to his chest, the wind in his hair and breathed in the scent of the earth. Peace wasn't the absence of danger. It was the presence of love, of choice, of courage. Down in the village, roosters crowed. A dog barked. Another normal day. And Miguel smiled, because after all the darkness, all the fear, all the weight of destiny, he was still here, still choosing, still living. And far beyond the hills, in a part of the world where the trees never moved and the sky stayed gray, something shifted. A ripple in the veil. An old eye blinked open. It had seen the light. It had felt the wound. And it remembered the boy who broke the chain. Not with power, but with heart. And it whispered to itself, ancient and patient, he is not done yet. Then the wind blew through the grass like a warning, but also like a song.